Hello, believers, non-believers, and everyone in between. You're listening to Stories with Sapphire. I am Sapphire Sandalo. Now get cozy and open your mind because it's story time. Hello, everyone. Is my audio okay? No, this mic isn't great. There we go. And move it closer to my mouth. Well, welcome to what did I end up calling this? Lo-fi stories to chill to. So this is the live stream I do every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific. This one is where I read from a book. Right now we are moving through this one, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. The music you're listening to right now was written by my husband, so let him know in the comments how you like it. You know what? I should call this Vibe Stream. Because this stream's all about vibes. Lots of people mention how they put on my podcast or my videos to like study to or fall asleep to, but like that's not what they're made for. So I figured, okay, let me make something that is made for that. Let's see. Hello, Mimi24, Get It Wolf, Ziara Macon, Omega Libra, Literal Loser. I'm not a fawn. Crivital Animates, Ishank Chibber, Drew C, Elena Espinoza. Welcome. So, you guys can hear me okay? All right. So where we left off, ooh, these drawings are so creepy. All right, this section's called They Eat Your Eyes, They Eat Your Nose. There are scary stories about all kinds of things. The ones told here are about a grave, a witch, a man who liked to swim, a hunting trip, and a market basket. There also is one about worms eating a corpse. Your corpse. Why would he tell us what the story is going to be about? Okay, so here's a really short one. Actually, I have a question, everyone. Is it... Is it better or worse if I hold the mic? It defeats the whole purpose of having a mic on clip, but does it sound better is it better when I hold it like this? I will wait for feedback. But it doesn't hurt. It's not that difficult to hold it. Okay, but let me know if it's just way worse, because then I'll put it down. This is called the hearse song. Don't you ever laugh as the hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. They wrap you up in a big white sheet from your head down to your feet. They put you in a big black box and cover you up with dirt and rocks. All goes well for about a week, then your coffin begins to leak. The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out. The worms play pinnacle on your snout. They eat your eyes, they eat your nose, they eat the jelly between your toes. A big green worm with rolling eyes crawls in your stomach and out your eyes. Your stomach turns a slimy green and pus pours out like whipping cream. You spread it on a slice of bread, and that's what you eat when you are dead. That's an interesting one. Oh, I guess there's like a melody too. I don't know. I can't really cite music read. Don't you ever laugh as the hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. Wow, that was really bad. And I can't hear the music playing right now, so I'm sorry for trying to sing over the music that I cannot hear. All right. Ready for the next story? This one's called The Girl Who Stood on a Grave. Some boys and girls were at a party one night. There was a graveyard down the street, and they were talking about how scary it was. "Don't ever stand on a grave after dark," one of the boys said. "The person inside will grab you. He'll pull you under." "That's not true," one of the girls said. "It's just a superstition." "I'll give you $1 if you stand on a grave," said the boy. "A grave doesn't scare me," said the girl. "I'll do it right now." The boy handed her his knife. "Stick this knife in one of the graves," he said. "Then we'll know you were there." The graveyard was filled with shadows and was as quiet as death. There was nothing to be scared of, the girl told herself, but she was scared anyway. She picked out a grave and stood on it. Then quickly she bent over and plunged the knife into the soil, and she started to leave. But she couldn't get away. Something was holding her back. She tried a second time to leave, but she couldn't move. She was filled with terror. "Something has got me," she screamed, and she fell to the ground. When she didn't come back, the others went to look for her. They found her body sprawled across the grave. Without realizing it, she had plunged the knife through her skirt and had pinned it to the ground. It was only the knife that held her. She had died of fright. You know, I think somebody has sent that story in as an email before. Sounds very familiar, but I like it. All right, ready for your next one? This one's called A New Horse. Two farm hands shared a room. One slept at the back of the room. The other slept near the door. After a while, the one who slept near the door began to feel very tired early in the day. His friend asked what was wrong. "An awful thing happens every night," he said. "A witch turns me into a horse and rides me all over the countryside." "I'll sleep in your bed tonight," his friend said. "We'll see what happens to me." About midnight, an old woman who lived nearby came into the room. She mumbled some strange words over the farmhand, and he found he couldn't move. Then she slipped a bridle on him, and he turned into a horse. The next thing he knew, she was riding him across the fields at breakneck speed, beating him to make him go even faster. Soon they came to a house where a party was going on. There was a lot of music and dancing. They were having a big time inside. She hitched him to a fence and went in. While she was gone, the farmhand rubbed against the fence until the bridle came off, and he turned back into a human being. Then he went into the house and found the witch. He spoke those strange words over her, and with the bridle, he turned her into a horse. Then he rode her to a blacksmith and had her fitted with horseshoes. After that, he rode her to the farm where she lived. "I have a pretty good filly here," he told her husband, "but I need a stronger horse. Would you like to trade?" The old man looked her over, and he said he would do it. So they picked out another horse, and the farmhand rode away. Her husband led his new horse to the barn. He took off the bridle and went to hang it up, but when he came back, the new horse was gone. Instead, there stood his wife with horseshoes nailed to her hands and feet. And then look at this weird, creepy little drawing of a horse. Ew, what is that? And it's got little like human feet. Oh, we got a super chat from Adam Lombardo. Thank you, Adam. "Okay, random, but Sapphire, we rented a mansion for the weekend and it has hidden rooms with a cave in it. Made me think of your spookiness instantly." Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's literally my dream, to have a house with a secret room. Right now my office is split into 2 rooms and it has a door separating it. So my goal is to turn that door into like a bookshelf or something. Bookshelf might be like too cliche at this point, but it's still cool. All right, ready for another one? A young woman, this one's called Alligators. A young woman in town married a man from another part of the country. He was a nice fellow. and they got along pretty well together. There was only one problem. Every night, he'd go swimming in the river. Sometimes he would be gone all night long, and she would complain about how lonely she was. This couple had 2 young sons. As soon as the boys could walk, their father began to teach them how to swim. And when they got to be old enough, he took them swimming in the river at night. Often they would stay there all night long, and the young woman would stay home all by herself. After a while, she began to act in a strange way. At least, that is what the neighbors said. She told them that her husband was turning into an alligator and that he was trying to turn the boys into alligators. Everybody told her there was nothing wrong with a man taking his sons swimming. There was a natural thing. That was a natural thing to do. And when it came to alligators, there just weren't any nearby. Everybody knew that. Early one morning, the young woman came running into town from the direction of the river. She was soaking wet. She said a big alligator and 2 little alligators had pulled her in and had tried to get her to eat a raw fish. They were her husband and her sons, she said, and they wanted her to live with them, but she had gotten away. Her doctor decided she had lost her mind, and he had her put in the hospital for a while. After that, nobody saw her husband and boys again. They just disappeared. But now and then, a fisherman would tell about seeing alligators in the river at night. Usually, it was 1 big alligator and 2 small ones, but people said they were just making it up. Everybody knows there aren't any alligators around here. I need a creepy picture of alligator. That's so random. That was an interesting one. They're all interesting. All right, here's a short one. This one's called Room for One More. A man named Joseph Blackwell came to Philadelphia on a business trip. He stayed with friends in the big house they owned outside the city. That night, they had a good time visiting. But when Blackwell went to bed, he tossed and turned and couldn't sleep. Sometime during the night, he heard a car turn into the driveway. He went to the window to see who was arriving at such a late hour. In the moonlight, he saw a long black hearse filled with people. The driver of the hearse looked up at him. When Blackwell saw his queer, hideous face, he shuddered. The driver called to him, "There's room for one more." Then he waited for a minute or 2, and he drove off. In the morning, Blackwell told his friends what had happened. "You were dreaming," they said. "I must have been," he said, "but it didn't seem like a dream." After breakfast, he went into Philadelphia. He spent the day high above the city in one of the new office buildings there. Late in the afternoon, he was waiting for an elevator to take him back down to the street. But when it arrived, it was very crowded. One of the passengers looked out and called to him, "There's room for one more." It was the driver of the hearse. "No thanks," said Blackwell. "I'll get the next one." The doors closed and the elevator started down. There was shrieking and screaming, then the sound of a crash. The elevator had fallen to the bottom of the shaft. Everyone aboard was killed. I don't think this picture applies to this story, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Cinderheart Meow. Thank you for the super chat. "Hey Sapphire, I've been listening to your narration since your first episode on Snarled. Thank you. I'm so happy you're still out here reading these spooky stories for all of us to hear." Well, I'm happy that you are still listening to them. Yeah, I love reading stories. It's a bummer what happened with Snarled, but what are you going to do, right? Okay. You ready for the next one? This one is called The Wendigo. I'm sure we're all familiar with the Wendigo here. Let me get some water first, actually. Okay. A wealthy man wanted to go hunting in a part of northern Canada where few people had ever hunted. He traveled to a trading post and tried to find a guide to take him, but no one would do it. It was too dangerous, they said. Finally, he found an Indian who needed money badly, and he agreed to take him. The Indian's name was Defago? I'm going to say Defago. They made camp in the snow near a large frozen lake. For 3 days they hunted, but they had nothing to show for it. The third night, a windstorm came up. They lay in their tent, listening to the wind howling and the trees whipping back and forth. To see the storm better, the hunter opened the tent flap. What he saw startled him. There wasn't a breath of air stirring, and the trees were standing perfectly still. Yet he could hear the wind howling, and the more he listened, the more it sounded as if it were calling Defago's name. Defago, it called. Defago. I must be losing my mind, the hunter thought. But is it Defago? There's an accent, so it's confusing. But Defago had gotten out of his sleeping bag. He was huddled in a corner of the tent, his head buried in his arms. What's this all about? The hunter asked. It's nothing, Defago said. But the wind continued to call to him, and Defago became more tense and more restless. Defago, it called. Defago. Suddenly, he jumped to his feet and began to run from the tent, but the hunter grabbed him and wrestled him to the ground. You can't leave me out here, the hunter shouted. Then the wind called again, and Defago broke loose and ran into the darkness. The hunter could hear him screaming as he went. Again and again he cried, "Oh, my fiery feet, my burning feet of fire." Then his voice faded away, and the wind died down. At daybreak, the hunter followed Defago's tracks in the snow. They went through the woods, down toward the lake, then out onto the ice. But soon he noticed something strange. The steps Defago had taken, footsteps, got longer and longer. They were so long, no human being could have taken them. It was as if something had helped him to hurry away. The hunter followed the tracks out. Sorry, my dog's barking. Hey. Oh, it's the wendigo. Hey, Umi. Pause. Sorry, we're pausing the story. Hola. Sorry about that. Mood killer. Okay, can you see the picture? Okay. The hunter followed the tracks out to the middle of the lake, but there they disappeared. At first, he thought that Defago had fallen through the ice, but there wasn't any hole. Then he thought that something had pulled him off the ice into the sky, but that made no sense. As he stood wondering what happened, the wind picked up again. Soon it was howling as it had the night before. Then he heard Defago's voice. It was coming from up above. And again, he heard Defago screaming, "My fiery feet, my burning feet." But there was nothing to be seen. Now the hunter wanted to leave that place as fast as he could. He went back to camp and packed. Then he left some food for Defago. Excuse me. And he started out. Weeks later, he reached civilization. The following year, he went back to hunt in that area again. He went to the same trading post to look for a guide. The people there could not explain what had happened to Defago that night, but they had not seen him since then. Maybe it was the wendigo, one of them said, and he laughed. It's supposed to come with the wind. It drags you along at great speed until your feet are burned away, and more of you than that. Then it carries you into the sky, and it drops you. It's just a crazy story. but that's what some of the Indians say. A few days later, the hunter was at the trading post again. An Indian came in and sat by the fire. He had a blanket wrapped around him, and he wore his hat so that you couldn't see his face. The hunter thought there was something familiar about him. He walked over and he asked, "Are you Defogo?" The Indian didn't answer. "Do you know anything about him?" No answer. He began to wonder if something was wrong, if the man needed help, but he couldn't see his face. "Are you all right?" he asked. No answer. To get a look at him, he lifted the Indian's hat. Then he screamed. There was nothing under the hat but a pile of ashes. So I don't know why, but at the footprint part, I kind of was laughing to myself because I thought of the Jesus poster of the footprints in the sand. When his footsteps disappeared, that's when the wendigo carried him. Is no one... Okay. So we got time for one more. Ooh, this one's called Dead Man's Brains. And it's got a spooky picture. I like it. Alright. Oh. Wait a minute. Ugh, never mind. This is actually a game you're supposed to play. Never mind. Because we can't do that. Okay. Here we go. This one's called May I Carry Your Basket? And there's a basket. Sam Lewis spent the evening playing chess at his friend's house. It was about midnight when they finished their game and he started home. Outside, it was icy cold and as quiet as the grave. As he came around a turn in the road, he was surprised to see a woman walking ahead of him. She was carrying a basket covered with a white cloth. When he caught up to her, he looked to see who it was, but she was so bundled up against the cold, it was hard to see her face. "Good evening," Sam said. "What brings you out so late?" But she didn't answer. Then he said, "May I carry your basket?" She handed it to him. From under the cloth, a small voice said, "That's very nice of you." And that was followed by wild laughter. Sam was so startled that he dropped the basket, and out rolled a woman's head. He looked at the head, and he stared at the woman. "It's her head," he cried, and he started to run, and the woman and her head began to chase him. Soon the head caught up to him. It bounded into the air and sunk its teeth into his left leg. Sam screamed with pain and ran faster. But the woman and her head stayed right behind. Soon the head leaped into the air again and bit into his other leg. Then they were gone. I think my favorite part about these stories is how anticlimactic they are. It's just like, and then that was that. All right, y'all. That's our time. I hope you enjoyed the vibe stream. Do you think that's a good name or no? I think I'm going to call it that. All right. Thank you for sticking around. Special Brown Dwarf, Adam, Zeramecone, Get It Wolf. Okay, I think I said everyone's name here. I will see you. Actually, wait, no. I won't see you next week because I am going to be going out of town for a last minute work trip. So no live streams next week. Sorry about that. Oh, and possibly not the next week either because it's Thanksgiving. Oh no, what are we gonna do? I'll figure something out. Okay. Well, this might be the last time we see each other for a while, so but I'll keep you posted. If you just check the community tab on the channel, you'll know what's up. All right.